Welcome to Roll Call, a 126th Air Refueling Wing podcast of the Illinois Air National Guard at Scott Air Force Base. I'm your host, Technical Sergeant Brian Ellison. The Roll Call podcast focused on people, mission, and community. Today, I'm joined in studio by Captain Dustin Brown, commander of the 126th Force Support Squadron. Sir, we're just coming off this 4-day weekend. How was your 4-day weekend?
Not bad. Thanks for having me on here.
Oh, no problems. Thanks for coming on.
You bet.
The reason why I brought that up is I'm hurting. I'm here to relax at work because my wife and I decided Friday afternoon, like, hey, let's resod the backyard.
Sod's heavy.
Holy cow! So
Yeah.
we had to rent the tiller. So I get a tiller Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning, early Saturday afternoon, and that doesn't work. So I have to take it back, get another tiller. Oh, I'm dying. I'm hurting so bad from sodding on Sunday or tilling on Saturday and Sunday, and then sodding on Monday. Holy cow, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, I've never laid sod, done more yard work than I ever care to remember, and I try to get out of it as often as possible. I think the only equivalent I have for this weekend was I injured myself, so playing soccer with my kids. So apparently I'm old now.
That's when you get old. Yeah, that's when you know you're old. What were you doing playing? How'd you hurt yourself playing soccer with your kids?
Yeah, we play in the backyard all the time. They're both young, 5 and 7.
Right.
And I went to go kick a ball, trying to win because I don't let my children win.
That's how they got. That's life, man. That's how you learn.
I know, right? So I went to go and try to score, and I slipped on a rock, and I fell on my my right wrist, and it's just bruised.
Oh, is that why you got that?
Yeah, this stupid thing right here. Yeah.
Oh my. Wow. I don't feel so bad now.
I know. Everybody says I need a better story, but...
Yeah, those kind of injuries never come with good stories. It's never anything cool.
No.
So, speaking of doing a lot of things, what does the FSS do? Because they kind of remind me of UPS. What do they say? Best beyond shipping, every ing for small business. Well, you guys are like every ing for the Air Force, aren't you?
Yeah. We do. It's actually shocking. So I've been in FSS for about 5 years now. Started off as an OIC of one of our two sections. So we have personnel and we have services are the two sections that make up the FSS. And I came in initially as an OIC and then moved to ops officer, and now I've gotten lucky enough to fill in as the commander. But
fill in as the commander.
Yeah, so our current commander is actually deployed.
Oh, okay.
So while she is overseas, I am sitting in the seat. But yeah, you learn a lot. So we have a new chief that came in recently within the last year or so, and he'll say it all the time. He's like, I feel like I never stop learning in here, and that's really what it's about. I mean, so we do everything within the services side. I mean, we're talking about preparing meals for people. We're talking about lodging, any kind of recreation and like fitness and things of that sort. So you're looking, especially in a deployed location, what it looks like. How do you keep people entertained and provide them with the things they need to have that mental and physical health while they're overseas? So, I mean, it's dynamic. It changes all the time. And depending on who you have in the role, they can really be creative with what they do. So yeah, services it's called services for a reason. I mean, you have to have a servant heart and the mentality of caring for the needs of other people to work there and to work there effectively. So my hat's off to them all the time. I'm amazed constantly at the work they do, at the knowledge they have, and that they take the time to make sure people are taken care of. And so then you look on the opposite side of the coin, and we have personnel. So it's a weird marriage between the two.
Right.
But the personnel aspect, essentially, they touch on all the way I remembered, I think paperwork. So it's like you get in the military, they're the ones processing all your paperwork for you to get in.
Sure.
If you have changes to your benefits or to your retirement, or you change statuses for your work, you go from Title V to Title 32 to AGR. Whatever that is, it's going to be touched by personnel. Administrative actions of any sort. And honestly, it's ever changing. It's ever growing. COVID makes it hard.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
How has COVID changed your operations?
It's been, at first it was pretty drastic. We went to all telework, as a lot of people did, which was a little nerve-wracking at first,
Yeah, I mean, anytime it's kind of change like that, it's got to be.
Yeah. I mean,
especially when you're dealing with people face to face, and that's got to be hard. I'm sure a lot of people are frustrated.
Yeah. Surprisingly, when we did the telework thing full time, we didn't have really any complaints. I think that we have a lot of very professional people that work for us, and they do a good job of making sure that they're doing their job. And making sure they're doing it well for the customers. So I think that really went a long way, because we went above and beyond when we knew we couldn't be face-to-face with people. So again, my hat's off to them, like David Lorig, Senior Master Sergeant David Lorig, who works as the lead in our personnel, our superintendent. Just the effort he put into making sure that whatever time we were able to provide for people to come in and actually get like physical IDs done and to come in and process things that they need to, they made sure they were always available, that they always had somebody on standby, and that they couldn't be there physically, that we were answering the questions they needed and preparing them. So it's been pretty impressive, but it has been a challenge. I can promise you that.
Yeah, I can imagine that has been a challenge. And then especially you've got you got some troops deployed.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. So it doesn't seem like 4 years ago that the first, that the bucket just went. But here we are again. We have 16 troops that are actually currently deployed, both from our services and personnel section. So that's 16 total. And, they're doing everything from like our commander. I told you she deployed.
Yeah.
She's actually a flight commander of a force support flight over there right now.
Okay.
So doing something similar, a little smaller scale. Luckily, actually, it might be the same scale, to be honest. They just probably call it a flight over there.
Right.
And then you have our services folks and personnelist folks who are doing essentially the jobs they do here, but just a little bit different. When you're overseas, everything changes. You get that new dynamic of not only environment, but what are the needs on base,
Right.
and those vary from every deployed location you go to.
What challenges do you, if any, are they facing over there? Especially maybe under because I just heard today that they're also having. I mean, didn't think about it. It's a pandemic, duh. But
Yeah.
they're having to face it in their deployed location too.
Yep. There's a lot of restrictions that they have to follow. I mean, similar to what we're going through here.
Right.
I know one of the biggest headaches was actually just getting there. I mean, on top of the change in ROM locations and ROM requirements, where are we going to go and do our 2 weeks of quarantine before we leave? When's that going to start? The locations changed a lot. The time frames changed a lot, and so dates kept getting shifted. It's really hard to prepare your family and yourself for going overseas.
Sure.
When you don't know when you're leaving. So I think just being there is a relief, and I'm sure that the restrictions that they have there and the things that they've had to work around, they've probably had an easier time adjusting to that than I would say the back and forth yo-yo that they had to deal with here.
Yeah, it's always seems like once you get to your deployed location, it's always kind of, in a sense, it's like a relief. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. At least I can adjust and
Yeah.
get used to being here.
Right.
Yeah.
You talked earlier about just the challenges during, especially when the lockdown happened during COVID with ID cards. I heard there are changes. I don't know what changes there are to ID cards. What are some of the changes with the ID cards?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about those. So currently what we're doing is we're serving primarily 126th Air Refueling Wing and the 906th Air Refueling Squadron individuals. That is our primary focus right now, simply because of, one, man hours, and two, our card stock levels. Everybody's running short. The active duty side is having a hard time. They've reached out. We've actually done a good job working together to make sure that we each have the resources we need, but we're at a critical point.
You're running out of card? Why is just because... so many production lines shut down during this?
Manufacturing restrictions.
So
it's just everybody's running out and we're not getting any. So it's really planning, especially for us, if we look out towards middle of November, we're getting at a truly critical point where we may have to shut down some operations. So it's like, how do we stretch that out? How do we make sure we're serving our people the best way we can? We're trying to stick mainly to 126th and 906th. With that said, we do serve some non-affiliated customers, and so there's restrictions around that for like CAC IDs and US IDs.
Okay.
So some of those, like for CACs, they'll only be renewed if the customer's CAC expires in the next like 60 days. For dependents, it's when their sponsor statuses change. So like let's say retirement or commissioning. Yeah, and the other thing's retirees. So sponsors and their dependents turning age 65, they may need Medicare updates. So when Medicare information is updated in Deere's TRICARE, we'll accept those claims regardless of the expiration date on the card. So there's a few changes that have taken place, and there are a few restrictions that we, after looking at some best practices around other MPFs, have decided that they're a good route to go to help us minimize that impact on our card stock.
I remember what I wanted to ask. You can make appointments in Deere's now?
So, no, not right now.
Okay.
So we used to make appointments in Deere's. That was the way. Currently, we're only doing it through our org box, so our 126th ARW FSM org box.
Okay.
Or by calling 618-222-5708, and that's our customer service line.
5708?
Yes, sir.
All right. How far out do you see this shortage? Because, I'm thinking about myself. March 5th, my ID needs to be renewed.
That's a good question. I wish I had an answer. I don't know. We've not gotten any word on when to expect that to change. I just know that when we're running to our critical point and what we're doing to try to mitigate it. I do know that there's been special rules put in place for basically allowing a little bit of an extension on expiration dates for ID cards, things like that.
Okay.
I don't have that information handy with me, but I know that there's a few changes there to allow leeway.
Okay, so if somebody wants to make an appointment, they can call you guys at 618-222-5708.
That's it.
Any other changes coming to ID cards that you know of?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I think that as of right now, those are self-imposed changes for the most part. So I don't see any other ones.
Okay. So if somebody from, I don't know, they can't get an appointment for whatever with a wing, can they go over to the 375th and get an ID card?
Yeah, there's always the option. You can try 375th, the reserve section, as well as the Air National Guard. But the problem is everybody's putting similar restrictions on the way that they're issuing cards right now.
Okay.
We actually were prompted to do this because the active duty side was doing it already, because they reached a critical point before we did. So seeing that and then forecasting our own and saying, uh-oh, are we going to run into this same issue?
Yeah.
We were able to look out and make adjustments prior to. So, yeah.
All right. We're talking to the commander of the 126th Force Support Squadron, Captain Dustin Brown. So what brought you to the Air National Guard, sir? What made you say, I want to come into the Air National Guard?
Yeah. So it's funny. I went to high school. I always thought about going to college. I wanted to go to college, but no one in my family had. I'm one of 7 kids. My parents didn't. Grandparents, aunts and uncles, nobody.
Wow.
At least at the time, they hadn't. So
right.
I really wanted to. My girlfriend knew that I wanted to at the time, and her parents, basically I told them, look, I can't afford it. I'm not going. My parents can't pay for it. There's no way I can work enough. I'm already paying for my own car and insurance. And
right.
And they said, well, that's not acceptable. You're going to college.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So they basically walked me through a lot of things like meeting with recruiters or looking into financial aid. So I met with the Air National Guard recruiter. And as soon as they said college reimbursement, they talked about loan reimbursement. They talked about GI Bill and the kicker and being able to go to school basically for free. That was it. I was sold. And at the time, I wouldn't consider myself an overly patriotic person. I wasn't like, yeah, I want to join the military. But what I did want to do was I wanted to do something worthwhile that I knew would better me as an individual and as like even a neighbor, like make me a better person for the people around me, and then also be able to get my degree. And it worked out wonders. And then 15 years later, I'm still in. It has a way of doing that to you, as you know.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, it does.
So, and my reasons now are different, much different, but I'm glad that that's what brought me in. So here I am today.
Why'd you choose the 126th?
So I felt like the 126 kind of chose me in a way.
Sure.
Yeah. So I was in the 131st when I got in the military. Used to be at Lambert, and we had F-15s. So they bracked our mission months after I joined, like maybe 3 months after.
Man, that would have been awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I remember being a kid. I grew up right around there with my grandparents, and my aunts and uncles, and watching the F-15s just circle our house was so cool.
And they're so loud and powerful.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love them.
Yeah, I worked in supply. I used to sit on the dock for the warehouse, and they'd take off right over our heads and just vibrate everything. So the
awesome.
parts on the shelves would be shaking. It was so cool. But yeah, started there. They bracked us. They sent me to Whiteman Air Force Base in near Kansas City, so Knob Noster. Yeah, you and I talked about that a little bit.
Oh my! Why do they? Okay, here's my thing. University of Central Missouri is there.
Yeah.
Okay, that is not central.
No.
Maybe it's central to Kansas City.
It's also not in a good area.
Yeah. No. Anyway, so they sent you out to Whiteman?
Yeah, so I went there, worked maybe a couple months, and then they asked for somebody to deploy. And I'm like, please get me out of Knob Noster. So I will happily deploy. Went to Kyrgyzstan for a couple months, and then while I was there, I had a chief. He was the first superintendent I ever worked for when I got in. At the time, he was senior master sergeant, and then became Chief Gerald Scott. He was here at Lambert working in supply chain. Mm-hmm. Or sorry, here at Scott working in supply chain. And he gave me a call, and he said, hey, look, I don't know if you're interested in moving to Scott. And he goes, but, we have positions that are coming available here. I'd encourage you to put your name in, be one of the candidates, at least give it a shot. And I said, okay. So I did, expecting, one of many candidates, who knows. And I ended up getting one of the jobs while I was overseas. So I did a interview while I was there.
Oh, sweet.
Landed the job while I was still deployed, and then came home, finished a couple months over at Knob Noster, and then was able to transition over. So it felt like the wing took me as opposed to me seeking it out. And I've loved it ever since.
Yeah, it's a great wing.
Really is.
I enjoy being here.
Yep.
Yeah, I won't talk bad about another wing that I was in, but just like I was like, why do you guys want me here? Do you even care that I'm here? They didn't even seem to care that I was even in the wing. So it was,
that's tough.
It's like, okay. So did you then commissioned later then?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
cool.
I came in 05 enlisted.
Okay.
And then that lasted until 2014. So I did about 9 years enlisted.
Wow.
In LRS.
Okay.
And then after I got out of supply, I moved into EO is where I commissioned. So equal opportunity. And then moved into FSS about 5 years ago.
What's it like going from enlisted to officer? What's that life? What's that like?
It's a trip, I can tell you that. It took me a long time to adjust.
Really?
It really did. Especially because I went straight from being enlisted to working for General McDew.
Oh.
Yeah. So as soon as I got commissioned and I came back, I was looking for a job because I was a full-time technician when I was enlisted, and I gave that up for a DSG officer slot.
Wow.
So they said, hey, we got some days you can pull over at AMC, but you have to interview and pass. So somehow they selected me. They were looking for a lieutenant colonel. I interviewed, and they said, sure, you can have the job. So I worked for an office that was under General McDew, and we worked on changing the learning culture of AMC. It was called the Enterprise Learning Office. And so my introduction to being an officer was working in a very high-vis, high-rank office. And it was at first nerve-wracking, but then now stepping into like this role as a commander, or even when I moved down to the OIC roles or into an ops role, it doesn't feel, I don't feel the pressure.
Good.
I don't know why. It's one of the ways I'm made up. My wife's always told me that, and people who've known me, but also the experience of jumping straight into that this job now does not feel very stressful to me. So, and it's not that it's not a stressful job to have.
Oh, I'm sure.
Especially depending on the squadron you're in, it can be immensely stressful. But I think I've been prepped with how to manage stress at different levels, and how to weigh it against other stresses and say, is this worth something really getting worried about, or is this something that I should trust my people with, that kind of thing. So it's been a good experience.
We're talking to the commander of the 126th Force Support Squadron, Captain Dustin Brown. And, sir, what's up with the band?
I forgot you knew about that. But there isn't one
There
anymore.
isn't a band.
No.
Did COVID kill it, or was it? Is this a behind the music thing?
Behind the music, yeah. No, it was a pre-COVID, pre-COVID decision. But,
oh man.
I've played music in St. Louis for about 10 years.
Right.
Actually, yeah, right at about 10 years. And 6 with this last band, Waiting for Flynn. We wrote a lot of good music together. A great group of guys. they'll be friends for life, but I don't have time for it anymore with children and with work. And then on top of that, there's dynamics when you're in bands. I mean, working with the same four guys, especially on a very artistic and emotionally connected thing like music, it just creates dynamics that sometimes you get tired of. And I know they understand that as much as I did. So I'd had enough. I was just done with the whole music thing. I still write music at home. I like to play at church, do things like that. But I didn't have time and I didn't have the patience anymore. So, are you from here? Are you from the area? Yeah, from St. Charles, Missouri.
Oh, you're from St. Charles?
Yeah.
Where'd you go to high school at?
Timberland.
Where's
it's in
that?
Wentzville.
Oh, in Wentzville.
Yeah. Okay. I had to drive like 20 minutes to school every day.
What?
I don't know. The lines that they would put in for districts, they made no sense. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm from northern Jefferson County. No, I went to Northwest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, whatever. My grandparents lived in North County, so that's where I spent my summers. So that's where I'm from.
That makes sense. Mine was similar. My grandparents moved out to where we lived, and I guess my parents had no ambitions of moving. Ambitions of moving, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I say I'm bringing this up is because I don't know why this struck me the other day. Because we're in Belleville right now, Scott Air Force Base, home of, I don't know, maybe you don't know this, Uncle Tupelo.
I actually didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
I did not, no.
Oh, man. All right, so one of my favorite bands is Wilco.
Oh, okay.
And before that, they were Uncle Tupelo.
Yes, I did know that.
Jeff Tweedy. And now I'm blanking on his name because it's just that thing that we do when we're in front of a microphone. I could tell you all day about Uncle Tupelo.
Yep. I don't know.
Why can't I think of a dude's name? Jay Farrar. My goodness. I cannot believe I cannot forget. I worked with Jay Farrar's mom. Anyways, point is, so we're in Belleville.
Yeah.
Home of one of the greatest bands in the world, I think, Wilco. And
we could disagree.
We could agree to disagree. That's fine. Yeah. But I don't know where I was going with this point was we're in Belleville, home of Uncle Tupelo, where Uncle Tupelo started with Jay Farrar and Jeff Tweedy. And boy, I got to see Wilco this last November at the Fox.
Yeah.
It's like a homecoming. They had the Bottle Rockets open up for him. And then the Bottle Rockets came on stage with him. Jeff Tweedy just sat there. I mean, they played for like 2.5 hours. Told stories.
Well, they have a ton of songs.
Oh, yeah.
A ton.
And just told stories and the whole 9 yards. It was because I've seen Wilco in Germany. I've seen Wilco in Chicago, but I never got to see Wilco here at home, which Chicago is their home now. But again, my point is I've lost the point of all this. But bands break up was the point.
It is. Well, they're still together, though. I mean, no,
Uncle Tupelo broke up.
Uncle Tupelo's not, yeah.
Yeah. They broke up at their height. And it turns to find, it took them forever to find out why they broke up. But it turned out that Jay Farrar was mad at Jeff Tweedy because Jeff talked to a girl that he liked.
I mean, that sounds more like a band breakup than anything you can imagine.
But it's so bizarre. It's like something from when they were really young. They were still like playing at Blueberry Hill.
Yeah.
Or Cicero's.
Oh, I love those places.
Going down into old Cicero's.
Oh, yeah.
He got mad at him like that. That was like during the first or second record.
I never got to play at Cicero's. So I've played Blueberry Hill multiple times. We actually had a show planned for Cicero's before it closed. We were on the books. We were ready. It was like 4 weeks out, and they closed down Cicero's.
Oh, man.
And then they moved us to what was that? I can't remember the name. Fire something.
Close to the Fox?
Yeah, what's it called?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
I can't remember. Anyway, all I know is they moved us there. The guy managing it was, nobody wanted to deal with us. We dropped the show. It was, yeah, it's funny you bring up Wilco. So my guitar player, Michael Flynn, I would assume he's closer to your age than mine.
Okay. All right.
Massive Wilco fan. So he has said, hands down, best band ever to exist. Loves them. And so I'm like, all right, give me an album. I'll look
Yankee
him up.
Hotel Foxtrot, you got to start with that.
So he did tell me that one. He also gave me Sky Blue Sky.
Sky Blue Sky is good, yeah.
Okay. So I looked up Sky Blue Sky and I listened to it on a drive I was taking. I had a big, long drive. I listened to the whole album.
Right.
Front to back.
Okay.
And I sent him a text and I said, I appreciate the musicianship. Jeff Tweedy's voice drives me nuts. It drives me nuts.
Oh, I love it. You know what? I was a Wilco fan, and every time a Wilco album would come out, I'd buy it, and I'd just put it on the shelf because it's a St. Louis band. I want to support the St. Louis band.
Yeah.
But I was in Germany. I bought Yankee Hotel Foxtrot in Korea, and then I PCS'd over to Germany, and I had to go do some errands around Frankfurt. So I took the CD, put it in my Discman, was walking around Frankfurt, and it just like struck me. I mean, that album, if you got to listen to that album, you got to listen to it. You just can't, you know.
Can't just put it on.
You just can't put it on, but you got to really pay attention to it. And it's like, this is unbelievable. And that's when I became a fan, like 20 years ago. I mean, they've been around for 25 years now.
Yeah.
But it was like 4 or 5 years into it that I was like, holy cow. And then the story behind Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, where they got dropped by the label. They made the record. They gave it to the label, and they said, we don't hear any hits on this. You need to come up with some hits. And they're like, well, this is the album that we're going to make, and this is the album that we have. They said, hit the bricks.
Really?
So
I did not know that.
That was for Warner, and Warner let them take the album with them because a lot of times,
want it.
yeah, I guess a lot of times bands won't or labels won't let you take the record with you.
Well, they own it.
Yeah,
yeah.
So they went and said, whatever, take it back. You can take it with you. Then they wind up signing with Sire. Or Reprise. Part of the Warner Brothers music.
Get out of here.
Umbrella. So they wound up, and they did. I mean, what they did was they put out the album for free online in 2001, and let everybody just listen to it, and it just became this whole thing. There was a documentary made about it.
You know what kills me? To me, that's one of the best ways to release an album. So I talked to. We had been building an album for a long time with this last band I was with. And we finally were at a point where we're like, all right, we finished a few more songs, finished, mixing them up and getting them ready in the studio, and we're ready to release an album, be our first one. And I wanted to do it for free. I mean, my idea was, let's release this as a free album and let anybody listen to it that wants. Nobody knows who we are. We're a local band.
Right.
We have a decent sized crowd that comes to shows. There's people that do enjoy our music, but we're not widely known by anybody.
Right.
So I'm like, release it for free. Worst case scenario, nobody listens to it.
Right.
Best case scenario, we get a couple new fans because people listen to it and they're like, hey, I did, it's free. Let's give it a shot. But yeah, it never happened. We never released the album. So,
a lot of times, well, not a lot of times. I talked to a few people in music. I was really good friends with the guys from Flogging Molly for a little bit.
Okay.
When they would come to Germany, I would follow them around. We'd hang out the whole nine. Yeah, it was debauchery in the highest degree. But I was talking to Nate, the bass player, and I was like, hey, so, and this was during the time of like Napster and things like that.
Yeah. And
I was like, what's your feeling about it? He goes, I don't care if you buy my album because I only get, he's a band member in a 7-piece band.
Oh yeah. He's not getting much.
So he's not getting much.
Yep.
So he's probably getting, they're probably getting maybe on record back then on CDs, maybe $1 per album that was sold while the record company gets the other 90% or whatever it is. And then now they're taking that $1, splitting it among 7 people in the band. You're not making much money. He goes, I'd rather have you come to the show and see me and see us, buy a ticket to our show, buy a T-shirt, buy some memorabilia or whatever, because I make more money off that than I will ever see from my records.
Yep, I agree. There's also something to be said for the experience. I mean, there's a lot of people who tell you need the money, and that's the problem. It's not a desire for money for a lot of musicians. It's if I don't make this money, I can't continue to tour.
Right.
But if they had the option and they could afford to, they'd do it for free. I mean, there is no feeling I've ever experienced like being on stage and seeing a crowd of people in front of you singing along to a song that you've written. There's nothing I've experienced like it.
I can't imagine. Yeah, that's got to be pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
So I know you're a guitar player, right?
Yes.
Reaction. What'd you think when Eddie Van Halen died?
Oh, I mean, a couple things. One, it was kind of expected. I will say that. Only
You
because...
think so?
Well, I mean,
The man smoked like a chimney is the way I looked at it. I was like, yeah, the man smoked, but he was 65.
I mean, that's why it was expected to me. However, that was young. And I mean, he has changed music. I mean, like, he's phenomenal guitar player. I think he was a really good songwriter. I wouldn't say a great songwriter, but a really good songwriter.
He was a good backup singer.
He was a good backup singer.
I mean, yeah, he sings backup on every song. If you listen to I was listening to, I think Casey was playing a nice little tribute to them, and I went and listened to some other, and it's just like to hear his backing vocals to David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar. It's like, yeah, he's pretty good.
He's not bad. Yeah. Well, he could kill a guitar. I mean, it was ridiculous. But to be honest, can I tell you what affected me more than him? I mean, Eddie Van Halen never had a huge impact on me musically. I mean, I always enjoyed it when I was younger, listening to it.
Right.
But the big one for me was Chris Cornell.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
sure.
vocally for me, in my mind, the best rock vocalist that's ever sang.
Yeah.
And the only reason, I'm not saying that there's nobody who's ever had better songs, but he just had this tonality, and his range and his phrasing was just really cool and unique. And when he passed away, and especially the manner in which he did, it was kind of devastating. And it goes back to the same things that people experience with Nirvana and Amy Winehouse. And when people just leave the world that had an impact on you, it's tough, especially, like I said, for something that's emotionally connected like music is.
Yeah, it's. I remember growing up, like you said, I'm probably a little bit older than you. Everybody started learning the finger picking on the fretboard. I was like, what? And and I never thought about it until recently. I was like, Eddie Van Halen was the first one to ever really do it and do it well.
He did it very well.
I bet you Jimi Hendrix would have figured it out eventually if he hadn't already done it.
He may have. I mean, I don't
know.
To a show. Who knows what he did live, especially?
Yeah,
I wasn't there.
No kidding. But I just remember everybody, like late 70s, early 80s, pick up their guitar and was trying to do that finger picking on the frets. It was pretty amazing.
It's actually not a very hard thing to do. If you're a guitar player, it's one of the easier tricks to learn.
Right, yeah. But it's like, nobody ever thought about that. It's like the easiest thing sometimes in the world that you never think about.
Yep. And it sounds vastly more complicated than it is, which is the cool part. I mean, that's what you go for, right? You want to find something simplistic and make it work in a complicated way.
Yeah. Hey, did you see these new masks?
No, I want one.
Yeah, they're being sold by the 126th Community Action Team. They're going to benefit the Friends of Scott Air Force Base National Guard emergency funds.
That's awesome.
Airmen and families. There's only about 100 of them left. They're $10. Did I say that? $10?
No.
They're gonna. You can get them at Airmen and Family Readiness right over there. Awesome. I just bought mine from Travis. The Director of Psychological Health during the week, or any helper agency during drill weekends. And for the kids out there, they use Cash App.
Ooh.
Yeah, sending funds. So I'm just reading this now. Online reservations can be made by sending funds to FOSANG via Cash App with the message MASK to $. I guess maybe that's, you have to say it some kind of hip way, but to $, Team TART. And masks will be delivered or picked up during the following drill.
TART?
TART.
Okay.
Is that
TART? Well, I know a Moria tart who works in supply chain. So I'm wondering if it might be a tie. Who knows?
I don't know.
We're talking about sweet tarts. I don't know.
We could be. Captain Dustin Brown, Commander of the 126th Force Support Squadron. Sir, thank you for joining us today on the Roll Call Podcast.
My pleasure.
Appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Fun. All right. Sweet. We'll have you on next week. That's going to work out great for me. Don't have to worry about scheduling people at all. Thanks again for listening to Roll Call, a 126th Air Refueling Wing podcast focused on people, mission, and community. I'm Technical Sergeant Brian Ellison.